6th grade, this is Miss Risa here. Today your assignment is lesson 7 and you're learning about how to use semicolons. Alright, so you've already learned that when you have a list of items, we use commas to separate them. Alright, so we know what the separate items are. So normally we use commas to separate a list, but sometimes sometimes the items already have commas in them. So pretty soon we have a bunch of commas in our sentence, and it's not clear what each individual item that we're listing is. So when that happens, we need to use semicolons to show the difference between each individual item. So an example of that would be when you're listing cities or capitals of countries, or not capitals, but cities and their countries. So here are 3 places that I've been to: Jerusalem, Israel; Choice, Mexico; and Guatemala City, Guatemala. So notice Jerusalem, Israel is one item, but I have a comma to separate Jerusalem and Israel because this is the city, this is the country, okay? So we separate that with a comma. And then I go on to my next item, Choice, Mexico. And again, I need a comma to separate the city from the country. And down here, Guatemala City, Guatemala. And again, I need a comma to separate the city from the country. So, if I would just use commas to separate those, it would be kind of confusing, all right? Am I listing off Jerusalem? Is Jerusalem one item, Israel another item, Choice another item, Mexico another item? No, I'm not. I'm listing off Jerusalem, Israel is one item, okay? So to separate that, I need to use a semicolon. Okay? Jerusalem, Israel is one item, and to show that, I use a colon to separate it from the next item. Choice, Mexico is another individual item, okay? They're used together as one item, so again, I need a semicolon in there. All right, so we use semicolons to divide lists of items that already have commas in them, such as cities and countries. Another time we would use semicolons is when we're listing names and appositives, or when we have appositives in a list. Remember, an appositive is a word that renames the word right before it without using a linking verb. Okay? So here I have a list of people. This is just a random list of people, but the first person is Tirza, my niece. Okay? So Tirza, my niece is one item. Alicia, my friend, is the second item. And John, my cousin, is the third item. Okay? So since my first item, Tirza, comma, my niece, already has a comma in it there, I need a semicolon to separate it from the next item to make it clear that these are 2 different items. Okay? Alicia, my friend. This is one item, but since it already has a comma in it, I need a semicolon to separate it from the next item. And hopefully you're able to see this. And then John, my cousin, is the third item. All right? So when you have lists of items that already have commas in them, you need to separate each individual item with a semicolon. All right? And then sometimes you have compound sentences that have commas in them. And so to make it clear where the sentences are joined, you need to use a semicolon. So it's kind of like the same idea. I'll just show you what I mean. All right, so let's see here. I have a nice, reliable car, but that one is old and broken down. So, in my first sentence in this compound, or my first clause in the compound sentence, I need a comma between nice and reliable. Because remember, when we have two adjectives describing the same noun, we separate the commas unless it's color, size, or number. All right, neither of these are color, size, or number, so we separate them with a comma. Now, my two sentences are joined right here, okay? So to make it clear that this is not the first part and then first sentence and this is the second sentence, we need to use a semicolon where the sentences are joined, okay? So that right here is where my sentences are joined, so I use a semicolon there instead of just a comma, all right? And that makes it clear that's where my two sentences are joined. Okay, so again, for your lesson 7, you use semicolons in lists of items that already have commas in them, like when you're listing cities and states or cities and countries. You also use them in a list of appositives when you have the name and then a positive after it. You need to separate those with a comma, so each item needs to be separated with a semicolon. And if you have compound sentences that are joined that have commas in them already, you need to join the two sentences with a semicolon. All right, hope you have a great day, 6th grade.